Uh, oh, you remember to do the recording. Great.
I actually had to restart it. It started automatically, but then why just record me sitting here waiting on y'all? Sorry.
Well, did it record what Philip said?
I'll find out when I look at the recording later.
Well, the Fannie Lou Hamer branch in Columbus, Georgia, Muskogee County, is in a majority people of color community. However, the city council is white controlled, and it has been that way since Columbus was founded in 1828. And after 10 years of working in the vineyard here, this week, the women I work with in public housing, somebody needs to mute themselves. That is so rude to be making that noise while I'm talking. So I'll stop until they mute themselves, George. But at any rate, what was really uplifting to me this week, in 3 out of 4 of the public housing communities where Danita Gibson Lloyd, Etta Lamb, and I are working with parents. All 3 of us, by the way, are members of the steering committee of the Fannie Lou Hamer branch. So just in the context of WILF members working in their communities, the point that is being lifted up now, Philip and Joan, is the fact that our majority Black branch is working deep in the community for racial justice. And we hired 6 women this week. They all will earn $15 an hour, working a few hours a month on community service, reaching out to their neighbors who are parents of children in elementary school. And those parents are conducting surveys of other parents. And so we're building a movement of parents who are fighting for not only affordable housing, but are also fighting for education, equity, and for public safety, public health. So that's the great week I had. So Sister Tamiko, Sister Jasmine, Sister Ashley, Sister Natasha, Sister Tamika, and Sister Danielle, all parents of elementary school children living in public housing. Over.
Thanks. So Joan, and then Dr. Jean and Cece. We're introducing ourselves and checking in with something that you either experienced this week or you heard of that lifted up the work that you want to do for social justice, or encouraged you around that, or reminded you that, yes, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So we got Joan, Dr. Jean, and Cece.
Oh, I thought I had muted myself, but apparently, so I don't have to unmute. Hi, this is Joan. Glad everybody got here now. George was explaining that now those of us who are here are the ones who had registered, and except for the 3 people who said that they could not be here, and let George know about that. Ashley, Rosa, and Samantha. Sorry, but I figured that would be useful information for Dr. Jean and Cece. So let's see. I do not have a story to tell about something that encouraged me this week. I'm desperately hoping for something positive. I think at least I, and maybe a lot of other people, are overwhelmed with the COVID situation, which doesn't seem as if it would be that different for those of us working in wealth at a distance. But what we're experiencing, it does affect what we're able to do in wealth, I'm afraid. So I am looking forward to positive work in the future. Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm out here in San Jose, in case anybody doesn't know. San Jose, California, CC.
All right. Dr. Jean?
Yes, good morning, everyone. Good to be on the call this morning. What uplifted me this week, I spent a lot of my time watching the confirmation and just pulling from that, various highlights for me. I do my Unpacking Racism group on Sunday evening. So I'm sure there'll be some highlights that I pulled out of this for folks to be able to understand how to unpack racism, but more so than that, how they can identify their own blind spots. So the fight continues. I'm glad to be on the call this morning. Peace and love.
It's great to have you here too, Dr. Jean. I'm really excited that this call happened this weekend because I get 2 times in a row over the same weekend of being with my WILF people. It's kind of cool. I got this today and then BLC on Sunday. So CC Anderson.
She's not muted. I guess I better mute myself.
George, why don't you go ahead while we're waiting on Cece, so we won't have a lot of dead time in the recording, George.
While George is getting ready, I just want to say thank you, Dr. Jean, for reminding me about the hearing. There were a lot of very inspiring and also difficult and amazing presence.
Thanks, Joan. And thanks, Teresa. I had no idea I was on mute. I had moved my image to look at where CC was and couldn't see myself muted. So I was just talking. So my sign this week that was surprising and great was finding out that the Freedom Center for Social Justice in Charlotte, where our new one of our new members, Amani Floyd, works, hosted the 27th White Privilege Conference earlier this month. I had no idea that there had been 27 years of anything called a White Privilege Conference. And Amani and I set time to do a debrief of it. She's going to send me materials from it. So I feel like that's a good sign in the universe, but 27 years feels like enough time so that there should be some progress to relate or share. So I want to find out all about that, hopefully from Amani before Sunday, because there might be a resource out there. I don't know. But it was both uplifting, surprising, and encouraging. It was good to find out something new that might mean things are moving in the right direction, at least through the Freedom Center for Social Justice in Charlotte. So that's me. CC, do you want to go?
George, Cece is likely at work, so she may just be listening in. So we should move the agenda. If she pops back up, she will say something when she's not talking to her coworkers or whatever that's keeping her from speaking now. So could we move the agenda?
Thanks very much, Teresa. Appreciate your help. So thinking about racial justice work that are happening where we are and within our branches. It's the next conversation I hope that we can have, basically to discuss that. And in 3-minute rounds each, if we can, to think about any work that, or say, any work that you know of that you're aware of doing, and any suggestions that you have for work that we can do, either you do at your branch or Wilf US takes on. And I want to remind us, if you were here last month during our racial justice call, or if you even watched the recording of our last racial justice meeting, you will see around 11 minutes into the recording, Ian speak, who's in Nevada and is an indigenous man, talking about what's going on with storing contaminated nuclear residue from tests, ongoing tests, even where they're banned, and places where they're planning to do testing of nuclear weapons that are on indigenous lands. And that is certainly something we consensed on as a group last month as a work area for racial justice. And that is the status and current situations on indigenous lands where we are. So I wanted to name that one as part of what we can think and talk about. So if we can do a go round, and what I mean by that is not raising your hand, but go one at a time to say, here's something I know about, or here's something I think is important that we need to think about, whether that's at the branch level or for Wilf US as a whole. I'm looking on my screen. If we can go in the order of Dr. Jean, Teresa, Joan, Philip, and if Cece wants to go, she can go too. But right now, Dr. Jean, Teresa, Joan, Philip, that's my screen.
Okay.
3 minutes.
All right, I'm in my 3 minutes. I'm not sure if I understood what you were suggesting, whether to do something as a group or what we're doing in our branches. So let me just speak to what we're doing in our branch, and then you can correct me if need be, or maybe look at that as a bigger idea. We have the last Sundays of the month, actually following the BLC's meeting, our start at 6 o'clock. On 6:30 on the West Coast time. And what we've been doing is, again, looking at racism, trying to unpack it, but also the more we unpack, the more we begin to identify our own blind spots. Our last meeting, we found out that the city of Fresno did a brief video with their firefighters, and the firefighters made it very clear in the video that they never saw Black firefighters growing up. And so they were really the first young men. My son is included in that group. And so it was nice to see this 1 minute video that they made, but that opened up the dialogue for our women on the West Coast to talk about, let's get some statistics on how many Black males and women are in the fire department, how many of them have tried to interview but didn't get the interview, just taking some statistical analysis. We do have and that's going to be our project, looking and timing that and recognizing what more can we do, and then creating a safe space for our firefighters to be able to come in and talk about maybe some of the possible racism that they have experienced, and also supporting them and continuing to make it a very visible and a positive thing. So that's what we're taking on. We'll be hearing from some of our firefighters this Sunday, talking about what their journey has been like in the fire department, and maybe they can shed light as to why the other departments, other cities aren't so quick to hire Black men and women in the fire department. So that is our to-do project. That's what we're doing right now. And then in addition to that, I still try to put an article in our local Community Alliance paper on the very topic of unpacking racism and discovering your blind spot. So that's my little report.
Thanks. Teresa, 3 minutes.
Okay, well, I have a little clock here. It's 1:20. So I do want to be finished before 1:23. But George, as we have discussed, the Racial Justice Subcommittee needs to find its own niche in the Advancing Human Rights Issue Committee, because in my view, there's a proliferation of subcommittees, and most all of them in some way have to do with racial justice. Possibly the UN women's thing is less so, but UN decade reparations, immigration justice, racial justice, ending mass incarceration, and the death penalty, really all with racial justice. So I think the indigenous piece is important to lift up, but I recognize that there's a significant overlap between the Racial Justice Subcommittee and the work of the Black Liberation Caucus. Actually, there's a significant overlap between the Advancing Human Rights subcommittees and the Black Liberation Caucus. So I just think this struggle of trying to figure out exactly what racial justice subcommittee should be doing as part of the Advancing Human Rights Issue Committee is an organizational question that needs to be resolved. And I think the easy resolution is lifting up the fact that we're all on stolen land. So I would like to see that issue advanced inside of racial justice. Over.
All right, thank you. Joan and then Philip.
Should have gotten unmuted. Let's see. I'm inspired, of course, by what Dr. Jean was talking about, and I think Teresa's also brought up some good points, of course. And I've been thinking about some of those things too, Teresa. Let's see. I'm feeling that getting involved with, for example, the NAACP here and the African American Community Services Agency organization is something that will be a good thing to encourage myself and also other Wilf branch members to do. What we do here is we have a program every month, and the programs are all on different subjects, and we have not, in the current situation, been able to enlarge the group nor to have projects going. So I don't really have anything to report other than that I am inspired by what other people are doing, like Dr. Jean. My heavens, that sounds really, really good. And also there are indigenous organizations in the San Francisco Bay Area, which will be a good thing to check with. There's a project right now about a proposal for doing some bizarre project on indigenous land to the south of San Jose. And so there are people working on that. So I don't have anything to report about what I have done, but I am inspired, and we'll be talking with other people about what others and I would be able to get into. But as I said, when I introduced myself, I'm a bit overwhelmed with the current situation.
All right, thanks, Joan.
At least a couple of us are showing our faces, Dr. Jean.
All right. So Philip, anything you have to share? I
Yes,
don't know that Philip is often driving. Go ahead.
good morning. Yes, I have something to say. Um, since our last meeting, the group we refer to as the Racial Justice Working Group continues to move forward. And our last meeting, we actually viewed two films regarding the indigenous communities in America. One was named Bounty, which was a story of in Boston how the English governor put a bounty on the heads of the local tribe, and they hunted them down and tried to extinguish them. That was a horrible movie to watch. And also Dawn, which was another movie which I'm not going to really try to explain what it was, but it was about the indigenous community and how the American culture tried to usurp the indigenous culture around the country, and very, very sad. But our Racial Justice Working Group we basically discuss and watch these movies to basically enlighten our knowledge about the effects of American culture upon the indigenous community. Thank you.
All right, Philip. Welcome, Sue Hilton.
Hi.
We will give you a chance to introduce yourself and maybe share briefly some uplifting thing that happened that you experienced this week or that happened that felt like a good sign for your life and racial justice. And we're now sharing, and I'm going to go next, and then you can go after me, about anything that you're doing locally that you want to share with folks, or anything that we might be able to do as a whole. So you introduce yourself, and then I'll go, and then you can go share your local stuff. But you introduce yourself first.
Okay, I'm Sue Hilton, Arcata Branch, and something uplifting. Well, you know, it's spring, and that's a good thing. What that says for racial justice, I'm not sure, but you know, we've got a lot of good stuff happening around here, particularly with Native tribes, but there's also Central del Pueblo, which is working with immigrants. They're doing good things, and I love it that people are welcoming Ukrainians, and I hope it makes them realize the need to welcome all kinds of immigrants.
Okay, thanks. Well, I have a question for you, Gene Kennedy. The work that you guys are doing on the last Sunday of every month, is that your chapter, the whole chapter? You muted yourself and went away. Is that your whole chapter, Gene? That last Sunday, finding blind spots and that work that you're doing, unpacking racism, is that your chapter?
Yes, and I'm sorry I was muted up, but I didn't want any background noise.
Okay, no worries. No, being muted is great. I just wanted to ask
good.
that.
So
Thank
I
you.
think the question you said is it just for the Fresno branch is what you were asking?
Oh, I just wanted to make sure it was your chapter that you were talking
Yes.
about. Okay, good,
Yes,
good
it
enough.
was our chapter, right,
Excellent.
right. And while I'm on the line, I want to just give an invitation to others, you know, if they want to join in. I am looking for an opportunity to invite a representative of the BLC, maybe Sister Teresa or whoever else that can come in one of the Sundays as our guest to just break down what the BLC is trying to do and accomplish so that they can hear that straight from our mouths. So that's on a to-do agenda, but yes, it is the Fresno branch that's doing that.
Thank you. I'm with Teresa in terms of what WILF US can be doing around stolen land and the indigenous peoples who are affected by that. I think that is completely a fit for racial justice, maybe the only clear fit that happens under these subcommittees. As Teresa said, all of them are about racial justice. But I think that's an important project for us to think about. And I hope that after Sue goes, we can spend the rest of our time talking about how we make that a reality for WILF branches, those branches that are happy to let us know whose land they're on. How do we get them to actually do work that is helping in terms of racial justice in those places? All right, so for me, our branch, the Southern Piedmont branch, has a minority of people of European descent. And when I talked to one of the white members, possibly now the only white member, about recruiting and having other people of European descent in the branch, one of the things she said, which is absolutely true, is we have to prepare those white people. Because if and when white people who have unawareness and unchecked white racism, white supremacy, and white privilege running, and then they try to participate equally and share power with women of color and Black women, doesn't always go well unless those white women have been prepared. And what she reminded me of was 2 years ago in 2020, when we started the branch, was it 2 years ago or last year? When we started the branch here, I sat down on Zoom with her and another white member of the branch, and we talked about how do they take care of and track them, take care of each other around white privilege and all that, and track anything that may be a misstep, or as Dr. Jean said, a blind spot, and for them to support each other and name each other's blind spots until you know it yourself, because it's a practice, and after a while you're going to know what you do and stop doing the things that aren't working. And I had forgotten that. She reminded me. So what we're doing is alongside recruiting other white women, identifying them, and a number of them we identify through the Poor People's Campaign work we're doing, and then having that same kind of sit down, a conversation with like, here is what it means. Are you willing to do this as a white person? If you can, great. If you can't, go with God. So that's what's happening with the Southern Piedmont branch. CC is typing stuff in the chat, which I will read. Thank you so much for this, CC. Here we go. Hello all. I'd like to, oh, y'all can see this too, but I'm gonna read it out loud if you're on the phone or driving. Hello all. I'd like to report getting involved with Indigenous people and the racial divide here in Georgia, coastal areas and southeastern parts of the state, getting out the vote to get people to think like we do in seats of the table. So that's from CC. Sue Hilton, anything you want to share? Oh, she already did. I'm sorry. I lost myself. Go ahead.
I will say that we had an International Women's Day celebration, and the daughter, we lost our wonderful Indigenous UROC member last year. She died, but I've been sort of doing various things with her daughter, and her daughter did a PowerPoint at our International Women's Day celebration. So that was pretty cool.
Yes. All right. So do we all agree that we can spend time now thinking about how we get the focus area of Indigenous peoples and what's happening on stolen lands? We have that discussion now. Teresa.
I believe Cece was asking to be called on so that she could elaborate on what she wrote in the chat. And you just kind of read what she wrote, but you didn't actually call on her. It sounds like she may be available to talk. So I would like to hear from her about
that would be wonderful.
And the other stuff involved. Yeah. So Cece, can she unmute herself and speak?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I was just trying to let you know I'm involved with several different groups, and we're trying to work together, and I'm trying to get the Atlanta branch working with some of these Indigenous groups, and a lot of them are incognito because they don't want people to know where they live and where they are, who they are. And that's been a deterrent. Also, this nuclear waste, environmental hazard, and climate change all work together. So that's what I was really trying to say, to get it more involved where people are hurting. And just because it's them today, it's us tomorrow. And my main point was trying to get to Augusta and Athens to do some testing of the soil and water, just to see what type of substances in this soil. And I also want to state that that with, I guess, with the veterans, it's so much to do. It's just so much work to do. With the Veterans Administration, as well as University of Georgia having control of the dollars, who also do the testing of waters for different farms. And it's so much red tape to get them to come out to do those testing. So that's where I am right now. I'm traveling around the state as I always do, trying to find new ways and get involved with people to help and assist, find some funding. It takes money. And now that gas is out of control, I would say, it has slowed down the travel. But I'm interested in getting involved with others to see what their prognosis is and are, that we may take a look at it and collaborate together to see how we can connect the dots. Thank you.
Thank you so much, CC. It sounds like you're actually doing work with some Indigenous folks there in Georgia, maybe southeast of the state, and you might be able to give us ideas about what other chapters can do. Welcome, Linda Conti. We're give you a chance to introduce yourself, and we're discussing what WILF US may be able to do, all of us at our chapter level, that is connected to the Indigenous folks and atrocities that are happening on those stolen lands. Linda, introduce yourself. Are you able to do that, Linda? Maybe. I don't know if your audio is working, Linda, but we're glad you're here.
Thank
Teresa,
you.
oh, go ahead.
Nope, thank you. I'm sorry I'm late. I'm here to learn.
All right, Teresa, go ahead.
No, I would appreciate it if Linda would introduce herself and say what branch, and if you could give her what she should be telling us, she can learn, but we need to learn who she is, because she is on the national board of WILF, and I think that will be important for her to say, so that everybody knows, especially members like CC, who's new to WILF. So if you could make sure that Linda actually introduces herself, and then I'll go after that.
Great, thanks. So Linda, we
Okay.
introduced ourselves by saying where we are, our branches, and one experience that we've either had this week or heard about that encouraged us around racial justice. Let us know we're on the right track, that kind of thing.
Okay. My name is Linda Conti. I live in Westchester County, New York, and the branch is called the Westchester WILF. We've been kind of quiet during COVID. Things have been kind of closed down. I'm trying to get started again. I got a new member, and we're getting ready to put out a brochure and an invitation to join us. We have some very people who've been in WILF a long time, and we're just trying to get started. So I can't think of anything specific, except I have to tell you, I'm very impressed by what I read on the internet about a number of issues, and I am very impressed that we are being as active as we are. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And Linda, what is your role on the national board? Are you an at-large member or are you representing a committee on the national board?
I'm an at-large member so far. I'm also
Thank
on the
you.
finance committee,
Wonderful.
but I'm looking to join a few others so I can get a little more involved.
Wonderful, Linda. George, the work that Jean Kennedy is doing in her branch, what we're talking about in terms of getting people ready, I think is important for the branches to engage in. And I think that overlaps with the anti-racism transformation component of the 3-year strategy of the Black Liberation Caucus. And I think at some point at a future meeting, we need to take a look at that 3-year strategy chart, which calls for recruiting 300 new members by December of 2024. And that's in collaboration with all the existing branches. I'd like to, at the announcements part, tell about the UN Decade Reparations Tour of the Northeast. But I think what Jean Kennedy has been doing for a very long time in the Fresno branch is like critical work that has to happen in the other branches. And I think that the invitation to visit one of those Sunday sessions is greatly appreciated because I really do want to listen and learn because the Fresno branch, though it doesn't have the level of diversity and inclusion that I think is possible in Fresno, it's certainly, Jean has done a lot of work with who are mostly members of European descent. And if Jean could just describe the demographics of the Fresno branch, I would appreciate that because I think it would be informative to understand what she's been able to do over quite a few years, because Jean has been a member of WILF for quite some time. If Jean could speak on the demographics of the branch and how she sees her accomplishments up to this point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sister Teresa. Should I speak now?
Yes, please.
Okay, yes. So our demographic, being in the Central Valley, is a larger percentage of Hispanics, Asian, and then the 6% African Americans that are in the Central Valley. So we don't have a lot of African American or Black people in the branch. However, when I had first joined the BLC and noticed what your tenets were, one of which was to increase more visibility of African American and Black folks into our branches, that was the reason that I thought if we came up with a area that we could call a safe place where we could begin to unpack racism, because everyone was running around saying that we're part of the Black Lives Matters. We needed to understand how can white people say Black Lives Matters if they don't understand what it means for Black Lives Matters. So on the premises of that, the water was the right temperature to have our group, our branch begin to dive into this area. I will also say that I have been encouraging to have more Black people, and informing our branch that we are going to go after getting more African Americans, because that is part of what the BLC wants us to do. We have gotten another hold of a Black male. I think Brother Phillips encouraged me, because I thought, what are you doing in Wilf as a male? And then I thought, well, if we can have a Black male in the Bay Area, we can certainly have some Black males and others in the Wilf branch. So I wanted to make it very clear that it was because the challenge that was put out to us, and Sister Teresa, you doing that, saying, how can you guys be comfortable with just having your own selves as the only Black person in your branch? And that hit me between the eyes. And I've been quoting that in our writings in our local advocate newspaper, encouraging our branches to become more diversified and not just, be monolithic the way it is. So I just wanted to say, I see what we're doing as tying it into that part of the numbers, the bottom line, getting at least a minimum of 300 Black folks into our branches. And they cannot come if the branches aren't welcoming. They don't understand the language. They don't understand the body language. They don't understand what is being said. And so just unpacking our own stuff so that we can be welcoming when other people of color comes in. So I'm a little more detailed than maybe you wanted, but we don't have the numbers of Blacks. So we may not have so many Blacks in there, but it certainly is creating a safe atmosphere for conversations to take place.
Thanks, Dr. Jean. Anyone else for the stack? Well, I'm glad that we've got this recorded, and I want to ask one more round. If y'all have ideas about how would you recommend a branch begin to take on work to support Indigenous people in their area and investigate some of the atrocities on stolen land? Cece talked about doing soil testing in terms of dumping toxic materials. That's not the language that Cece used, but that could be a starting place. But I'd like to hear recommendations and get those recorded, because I do not know. I'm asking for y'all's ideas. Sue Hilton, thanks. You're muted, Sue.
Another group in our area started something called an honor tax.
Yes, I know about that.
Yeah, and we're really lucky to live in a place where we have local tribes with a history here and organized and present. And so we're all paying, or I hope most of us are paying honor tax.
Can you describe how that works, Sue? I know about it from
it's actually really simple. They invented this form, but actually all you really have to do is, for us, I just write a check to the Wiyot tribe and mail it to them at their address and write honor tax in the memo. And they actually sent me a receipt this year saying, this is tax deductible. I said, good.
Okay. Let's imagine that I've never heard of honor tax.
Okay.
What is it?
So all it is you say, okay, this land, theoretically it belongs to white people, but actually it belongs to Wiyot people. And as the true landowners, we should be paying taxes to the people who really possess, to whom the land really belongs. And you just say, what do I think a reasonable share of what I have would be? And you write a check and mail it to the tribe. And it's called an honor tax because we honored their right to own the land.
Thanks.
And there's something called www.honortax.org, I'm pretty sure. And you could actually figure out what tribes in your neighborhood might be the right people to pay to and do it.
Wow, that's something we can certainly share on the branches list.
Yeah.
Well, we have meetings that end in an hour. We've got 10 minutes left, and I want us to have a little bit of time 3 or 4 minutes for announcements. I know I've got an announcement that'll take maybe a minute or two, and Teresa's got one that might take a couple of minutes. So is there anything else someone wants to say before we pivot to close the meeting?
I do have one more thing,
Yes, ma'am.
which is in response to Teresa's encouragement to get members of color. We actually offered memberships to 2 people we've been working with regularly from Centro del Pueblo and the local NAACP, the president of the local NAACP and the executive director of Centro del Pueblo, and they both accepted. So we're going to have, though I don't think that they will be actually very involved in the branch, you know, they both have plenty work that they're doing, but we're saying we're connected to you. That's all.
Great. Sue, if you can get me the email contact for those 2 new members, I will invite them to the BLC meeting that's this Sunday. Okay?
Okay.
Just email me that and I will get them an invite.
I think I'm not absolutely sure we've got them actually established as members yet. So I'll make
Okay.
sure of that first.
No worries. We'll catch up.
Cool.
So announcements. Teresa, please tell us your announcement. Unmute, please.
George, would you go ahead with your announcement, please?
Sure.
So I can collect my thoughts a bit.
No problem. On Monday, April 4th, which is a week from last Monday, at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. for y'all on the West Coast, live streamed on the North Carolina Poor People's Campaign Facebook page and on North Carolina Peace Action's Facebook page, we'll be doing a reading of Beyond Vietnam, Time to Break Silence, from 1967 MLK's speech at Riverside Church. This is the 55th year of that. And what's just chilling, I've organized a online reading. Go to the Facebook pages at those times and see it. A great number of wonderful people will be reading pieces of it, and we'll be reflecting on how real it is in 2022. From 1967 to 2022, it's scary to me in a lot of ways that we haven't learned as a country some of the basic lessons in that. So that's my announcement. Please get on Facebook, North Carolina Poor People's Campaign Facebook page, Monday the 4th at 3 o'clock if you're on the West Coast, 6 o'clock if you're on the East Coast. That's it for me.
Well, thank you, George. I do want people to look at what I wrote in the chat. The BLC 3-year strategy to recruit 300 members. We need to make sure that we're doing the DEI thing, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And different branches are uneven on that. For instance, the Southern Piedmont branch is overwhelmingly Black women, as is true for the Fannie Lou Hamer branch. So our struggle towards diversity and inclusion is to recruit more women of European descent, and quite a few women of European descent joined WILF in 2012 when I came back from the CSW and had a big event here. But now that we built the branch, we're really uneven on that. And I just wanted to be clear for Dr. Jean and others that the 300 new members is not race-based. It's how many new members can you recruit to your branch? Because many of the branches are in trouble in terms of their ability to do more because not much recruitment has been done in the historic branches for some time. And to that end, the UN Decade / Reparations Subcommittee is supporting the Juneteenth reparations tour of the Northeast, which is connected to the Poor People's Campaign. So on June 17th, I will leave Durham, North Carolina, to travel to Washington, D.C. And Baltimore, where I'll meet with some friends there, some of whom are WILF members, but there's no branch in the area. So that will be an attempt to restart the DC branch, which will probably be the DC Baltimore branch. And then I'll be a part of the Poor People's Campaign on that Saturday, the 18th. And then I'll travel to Philly, where Tina Shelton is trying to help me find a location for an event in Philly for the Juneteenth reparation stop on the tour. And then the tour will go to New York City, and then Rhode Island, and then Boston. So I'm talking to Eileen about the Boston branch, maybe organizing the Boston stop on the tour. So to stay tuned, we'll talk about it at the BLC meeting on Sunday, but I'll be announcing it at the upcoming meetings in April and May. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Joan.
Hi, yes. I was really glad to hear, George, to hear you share about the April 4th Beyond Vietnam speech, because that reminded me that we're doing that here in San Jose and Palo Alto. Well, branches are getting together to do a reading, and as I understand it, there are going to be lots and lots and lots of WILF readings of the speech as you described it, people taking turns, et cetera, et cetera. So I think, and I like what you said too. We'll mention this to the folks here as far as some discussion afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's so much going on now. It's a, and there's so much that it reveals that following it up with a discussion is worthwhile. I mean, that military budget that Biden's about to, I'm sorry, I want us to end in 2 minutes, so I'm shutting up. Now, our next meeting date, let's pick one. Friday is the day, as convener, I prefer to set up these Zooms. Ashley has agreed to be the facilitator of the next meeting. Ashley Carrington, when she called and gave me her regrets, offered to facilitate next time. So April 8th or 15th are my strongest suggestions. The 22nd is Good Friday. Some people go away or have special things happening that weekend. Don't want to mess with that one. And the last weekend of April, I will not be home. I'm going to be at some retreat, and I don't know if there's Wi-Fi or anything there. So I'm not trying to make commitments that I cannot fulfill. So 8th or 15th are the dates I can set up a Zoom. And when do y'all want to have a date? Joan?
Oh, let's see. I remember that I've heard about something else on the 15th, but I can't remember what it is. So I think it's something national rather than, national WILF rather than just our branch. But that's, that is the night of our WILF branch meeting. But so
there's an
maybe that's what I'm
international
thinking
thing on
about.
the 15th, but I think it's earlier.
Okay, yeah.
How do other people feel about, let's say if we did the 8th? Can folks do the 8th of April? That feels very soon. Any thoughts? Please speak. I'm not really reading the chat.
Have
So
George,
the
have
8th
you
is fine
gotten
for me.
any, have you gotten any any input from people as far as whether the Friday morning or midday, I should say, Friday midday is a problem for people? For instance, Cece is one of the folks who's working and so on. Have you gotten any feedback on that, or should we
I
check
haven't received
people, or
feedback,
what?
but I haven't sought it either, Joan, frankly. I haven't gotten an email saying I'd come if it was at a different time, so I
Mhm.
don't know.
I don't know.
If y'all want to suggest a different time, I can make
Well,
most of the time.
George,
Yes, ma'am.
George, I think we can settle. I saw thumbs up from Dr. Jean, and I could do either day. And I think that's what the silence is about. So if you could just choose a date, and if we need to change it, we can do
Okay.
that.
So
But I
April
did
15th.
want,
Oh,
George,
sorry, go ahead.
George, I did want people to know that the immigration justice meeting is tonight, 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 in the afternoon for Pacific people. But I put that in the chat because that's another important meeting, and all of this stuff is interconnected. So I just wanted to make sure that didn't get lost as we close out. Thank you. George,
Thank you
will you
so
please
much.
tell us what date we're gonna be meeting?
Yes,
Because I
ma'am.
could do one.
April 15th is the date. I'm suggesting that and it's the same time, April 15th at 10 a.m. for some of y'all and 1 p.m. for some of us. And I
Thank
will I'll post this recording to the branches list, and I will send the chat to those of us who are on the call. Thank you so much. Have a great day and weekend. Dr. Jean,
Thank you.
Philip, Teresa, Cece, see y'all on Sunday. Bye.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Thank you, George.